Hello and welcome to Dott TV News at 4. I am Priscilla Ifani and here are the stories we have for you. Delta State government says it has increased its internally generated revenue from about 84 billion naira in 2023 to over 200 billion naira as the Governor Sheriff Oborevori's administration intensifies efforts to build a resilient economy less dependent on crude oil. The government disclosed this when a high-power delegation of the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission paid a courtesy visit to the state to assess its progress in economic diversification and enhanced revenue generation.
Speaking during the engagement, the Commissioner for Economic Planning, Sunday Ekedaeng, declared that Delta was deliberately repositioning its economy through strategic investment in agriculture, industrialization, and other non-oil sectors capable of guaranteeing sustainable growth. Ekedaeng disclosed that the dramatic increase in internally generated revenue (IGR) was achieved without raising personal income tax rates, attributing the feat to the expansion of the tax net, improved tax administration, stronger compliance mechanisms, and more effective revenue enforcement.
Mobilization, Allocation, and Fiscal Committee, as we all know, are responsible for the allocation of our common resource. They are not only sharing, but they are also looking at how, the cake can be bigger. And as such, they have the mandate of, the federal government to say, look, go out to these states and see how they are diversifying their revenue sources away from the central oil. That is why they are here. It takes only very responsible and thoughtful government and leadership to begin to think like that.
Also speaking, the Commissioner for Finance, Fidelis Tilije, said the Oborevori administration was laying the foundation for accelerated industrialization through strategic investment in critical infrastructure, particularly energy. He disclosed that Governor Sheriff Oborevori had directed that the Kwale Industrial Park be fully energized ahead of its inauguration, revealing that prospective investors were already positioning themselves to commence operations once the facility becomes operational.
Right Honorable Sheriff Oborevori has continued to showcase for all distance to see. I recall very vividly that about a month or so ago, there was a directive to the Commissioner for Energy to ensure that Delta State is completely energized. And you're also aware too that we had gone to do the inauguration, not commissioning now, of the Kwale Industrial Park. And as we speak today, if you get to Kwale Industrial Park, you will see that there are anchor tenants that are already positioning to really start serious business in that environment.
Earlier, Chairman of the RAMFAC Mobilization and Diversification Committee, Victor Eboiwe, described overdependence on oil revenue as economically dangerous, warning that decades of reliance on crude oil had exposed governments at all levels to the uncertainties of the international energy market. He stressed that diversification remains the only sustainable pathway to economic stability, improved government revenue, and long-term prosperity.
Many states of the Federation, including the federal government, have grown to become highly dependent on revenue from source, namely oil and gas. It is self-evident and has been repeatedly proven by our economic experience in the last 40 years that such dependence is dangerous and unhealthy for economic growth and development.
Speaking with journalists after the meeting, the Federal Commissioner representing Delta State in the Revenue Mobilization Allocation and Fiscal Commission, Martins Eyeweather, said the visit formed part of the Commission's routine oversight responsibility to assess how public resources are being utilized, particularly in relation to economic diversification.
We move from state to state to see how the money and funds allocated to the states are being utilized for the relevant sectors. In this particular case, it has to do with the diversification of the state economy, and that is why we are here.
The Ramfac delegation applauded Delta State for what it described as impressive presentations on its economic transformation initiatives, while urging sustained collaboration to consolidate the gains already recorded. The team expressed optimism that continued synergy between the federal and Delta State governments would further strengthen the state diversification agenda, expand revenue generation, and accelerate inclusive economic development for the benefit of its people. Ife Arono for Dott TV News.
So the courts, where the Delta State High Court sitting in Asaba has adjourned the alleged murder trial of 5 police officers following fresh developments in the case, including the arrest of a new suspect. The officers were present in court alongside members of the family of the deceased, Ogenemine Ogidi, the reports. Proceedings resumed before Justice M. Nduka at High Court 4 in Asaba, with the 5 police officers standing trial present in court alongside members of the deceased family. No witness was called after the prosecution informed the court that a suspect previously declared at large had been arrested. The prosecution now added that the case file relating to the newly arrested suspect had yet to be served on counsel to the defendants. In the view of the development, Justice M. Nduka declined to entertain the defendant's bail application pending the release and service of the case file on their counsel. Counsel to the defendant reacted to the court's decisions and outlined the next step in the matter.
New evidence came to light, so they need to go and put their house in order. It's just sad that it somewhat affected our case today, but then we'll come back on Thursday, the 16th of July, and then definitely we'll see how it goes from there. As far as getting to the prosecution, we can't speak to that because it's in the custody of the police, but I trust in the Ministry of Justice, so we hope that they are already making plans for that.
The case was subsequently adjourned until July 16, 2026 for further proceedings. Reporting from Asaba, Priscilla Ifani, Dott TV News. Still at home, the Delta and educational facilities. Some security threats through the Safe School initiative. The Commissioner for Higher Education, Niehovo Tonukari, made this known in an interview with Dott TV correspondent Onyeka Odiase. The reports.
Professor Tonukari outlined the Delta State's ongoing efforts to enhance security and strengthen protective measures across educational institutions.
Delta State is a very safe state, and our governor, Elder Sheriff Obolewore, is very particular about security. I know that's one of the items of the MOA agenda. So he has worked very tirelessly to make sure that Delta State is safe.
He noted that attacks on schools are not prevalent in Delta State, adding that the administration of Governor Sheriff Obolewore remains committed to maintaining a safe and secure learning environment through sustained investment in education sector.
His Excellency, in his wisdom, have approved that hostels should be built for all 9 tertiary institutions in Delta State. That is to reduce the students staying outside the campus because they are very safe within the campus. This whole thing is designed to increase the safety of the students.
Speaking further, the commissioner shared his perspective on what schools, particularly tertiary institutions, should represent for learners, emphasizing that they must provide an environment that promotes learning, personal development, and academic excellence.
We have 9 tertiary institutions in Delta State. In fact, Delta State have one of the highest number of higher education students anywhere in the country. There are 4 universities, 3 polytechnics, and 2 colleges of education. And they're all doing well, and they are safe. And one of the reasons is that we're very particular. The schools are autonomous, and many of them are fenced. If you look at the 2026 budget, you find out that some of these institutions that are not fully fenced, we have budget for them for fencing.
Professor Tonukari also reflected on his experiences during his school days, recalling a time when insecurity was not a major concern. He expressed his desire for every Deltan to enjoy the same sense of peace and safety and reaffirmed the state government's commitment to continually improving security across educational institutions.
I was walking about 2 kilometers to primary school, secondary school about 3 or 4 kilometers. I went to University of Maiduguri. all the way from Saple, that's where I grew up. Going to school, taking the bus to Onisha, from Onisha to Meduguri, everything was really no problem then. It was safe and people were happy. They were comfortable. I went through happy times. And that is what I wish for all Deltans.
Onyeka Ojase, Dott TV News.
Meanwhile, it was an emotional reunion at the Ladoke Akintola University Teaching Hospital, Ogbomoso, on Tuesday as dozens of school children and teachers rescued from kidnappers in Orire local government area of Oyo State reunited with their families after spending 56 days in captivity. The hospital premises came alive with tears, prayers, songs of thanksgiving, and warm embraces as parents waited anxiously from the early hours of the day for medical clearance to take their children home. The atmosphere became charged with emotion when the chief medical director of Lautech Teaching Hospital, Olawale Olakunleyin, emerged to announce the names of victims certified medically fit for discharge. As each name was called, parents rushed forward amid tears of joy, with some mothers rolling on the floor in gratitude while others hugged their children tightly after nearly 2 months of separation. Many of the parents expressed appreciation to President Bola Tinubu, Oyo State Governor Seyi Makinde, security agencies, clerics, and Nigerians for their efforts and prayers throughout the victims' captivity. It is, however, a different feeling in Kogi, where the state police commanders confirmed the abduction of a school principal and one NECO ad hoc staff member and 4 students writing the ongoing National Examinations Council examination at Government Secondary School, Odokina, in Dokina local government area of the state. The incident occurred on Tuesday, July 14, 2026, at about 5:25 p.m. when the school came under attack while students were writing their examination. A statement issued on Wednesday by the command spokesperson, Salisu Oyeliza, said during the incident, 4 students and the school principal and one NECO ad hoc staff member were abducted by the attackers. She said the Commissioner of Police, Kogi State Command, Naziru Kankarufi, the brigade commander, and the state security advisor to the governor of Kogi State were on their way to the scene for an on-the-spot assessment. To other stories now. The Nigerian police force on Tuesday arrested Adeniyi Adeyemi, the self-styled Director General of the alleged Presidential Foreign Investment Promotion Council, following a bench warrant issued by a federal high court in Abuja after he failed to appear for his arraignment on 8-count charge bordering on alleged conspiracy, forgery, and impersonation. Justice Mohammed Umar ordered Adeyemi's arrest after granting an oral application by the prosecution led by Wisdom Madaki following the defendant's absence when the case was called. The judge granted an oral application by the prosecution after Adeyemi failed to appear when the matter was called. Opposing the applications, Adeyemi's counsel, Genesis Francis, told the court that his client feared for his life and had written to President Bola Tinubu over the alleged threats. The judge subsequently adjourned the case until September 30th, 2026 for arraignment. Coming up shortly on the news at 4, 1 dead and 3 others missing after boat sinks near Alcatraz, and that's on foreign scene. We also have sports news all coming after the break. Please don't go anywhere. In the heart of Asaba, where the street tells the stories every single day.
From the corridors of powers to the decisions shaping governance and politics in Delta and Nigeria.
From traders counting every naira to families battling rising costs and uncertain times.
From football pitches to sporting successes to the major developments making the headlines all over the world.
And from the untold human stories, the struggles, victories, resilience, and hope of the everyday Nigerians.
This is the news beyond the headlines. Dot TV News are your trusted window to stories that truly matter to the people. Here, we don't just report events, we tell the human stories behind them.
Thanks for still being there, and now to the rest of our stories. The Independent National Electoral Commission (INEC) has said it will only recognize the candidates submitted by the Senator David Mark-led leadership of the African Democratic Congress, confirming that the faction had already nominated candidates for the 471 elective positions ahead of the 2027 general election. INEC National Commissioner Mohammed Haruna told The Punch that the commission granted the Mark-led faction access to its nomination portals following the Supreme Court judgment affirming its leadership, adding that the rival faction had no longer basis to submit candidates. The ADC has, however, called for an investigation and prosecution of the factional leader Nafiu Gombe following INEC's clarification that claims that Gombe uploaded the party's candidates for the 2027 general election through the Commission's nomination portal were false. The Tuesday statement issued by its National Publicity Secretary, Bolaji Abdullahi, followed INEC's clarification that it did not grant Bala access codes to its restricted nomination portal and that only the Mark-led National Executive Committee was recognized by the electoral body. Meanwhile, 3 political parties are yet to upload the names of their presidential and vice presidential candidates to the portal of the Independent National Electoral Commission ahead of the closure at 11:59 p.m. of Tuesday. A senior INEC official who spoke on condition of anonymity said the affected parties are the All Progressive Grand Alliance (APGA), the People's Democratic Party faction led by the Nyesom Wike and the Labour Party faction led by Nedani Usman. The official, however, said almost all registered political parties have successfully uploaded the names of their candidates for the 2027 general elections. The Commission had earlier extended the deadline for the submission of candidates after requests from some political parties insisting that no further extension would be granted. Still talking politics, the decision by the All Progressive Congress to go into the 2027 presidential election with a Muslim-Muslim ticket had reopened a debate that dominated the 2023 election. President Tinubu had last week renominated Vice President Kashim Shettima as his running mate for the 2027 presidential election, a decision that is again generating mixed feelings amongst Nigerians. While for the ruling party and their supporters, it is a political masterstroke that would ensure stability and continuity. Other Nigerians argue that in a multi-religious country like Nigeria, the same faith ticket is akin to discarding the feelings of the adherents of other faiths. Groups like the Middle Belt Forum, Northern Christian Elders Forum, and Arewa Consultative Forum, as well as individuals, have all expressed their views on the developments. And now let's go to the foreign scene, where one person has died and 3 others are missing after a pontoon boat capsized around 600 yards from Alcatraz Island on Tuesday. San Francisco Fire Department Chief Dean Cripston said the department received a report at 15:37 local time of a vessel in distress. He said a marine unit first on the scene witnessed a man in the water in severe distress and initiated CPR, adding that the man was declared deceased when brought to shore. Crispin said 20 people were on the 3-deck pontoon boat, mostly family members who were engaging in some kind of memorial service. For more news on the foreign scene, let's now join Nkechi Chukwudi.
US President Donald Trump has threatened to strike Iran's bridges and power plants next week if the country does not return to talks. The comments made in a Fox News interview aired as the two countries exchanged fire for the fourth day in a row. Trump earlier reversed the threat of 20% fee on all Strait of Hormuz cargo shipping, but resumed blockading Iranian ports.
Next week, it gets really bad for them because next week comes the power plants. Next week comes the bridges. We're going to knock out all their power plants. We're going to knock out all their bridges unless they get to the table and negotiate.
Back in April, Trump threatened to bomb civilian infrastructure in Iran, including bridges and power plants. UN Human Rights Chief Volker Turk responded at that time by saying, under international law, deliberately attacking civilians and civilian infrastructure is a war crime. The 1949 Geneva Conventions on Humanitarian Conduct in War prohibits attacks on sites considered essential for civilians. In other news, older teenagers in the UK will face an overnight social media curfew, the government has announced, though they will be able to opt out of it by changing their account settings. It would mean apps such as Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube being set to be unavailable by default to the 16 and 17-year-olds between midnight and 6 a.m. The government also wants addictive features such as autoplay and infinite scroll to be set to be disabled, saying, combined with the curfew, the measures will improve teenagers' focus, sleep quality, and family life. However, campaigners such as Ellen Room, who believes her 14-year-old son Jules Sweeney died in an online challenge gone wrong in 2022, does not think the plan goes far enough, as teenagers can switch the setting off. The new plan follows the announcement in June that under 16-year-olds in the UK will be banned entirely from a range of platforms. It is not yet known where exactly the opt-out button will be. Elsewhere, China's economic growth slowed sharply between the start of April and the end of June as weak domestic demand and the Iran war's impact on oil prices overshadowed the country's strong exports. Official gross domestic product figures showed the world's second-largest economy grew in the second quarter by 4.3%, below Beijing's annual target and after a 5% rise in the first quarter. It comes a day after government data showed that China's exports jumped by 27% in June compared to a year earlier. In March, China cut the growth target to a range of 4.5% to 5%, its lowest economic expansion goal since 1999. A move some analysts say gives officials more flexibility in managing the economy. The announcement represents the first full quarter of the GDP data since the start of the Iranian war on 28 February and marks the lowest quarterly expansion since the end of 2022, as China was emerging from its strict COVID-19 restrictions. And finally, in Kenya, the High Court has dismissed a bid of Rastafarian groups seeking a legalized use of cannabis for religious purposes. The Rastafarian community has argued that the ban on smoking cannabis infringe on their rights to freedom of religion and belief guaranteed under the Constitution. In a landmark judgment, Justice Bahati Moye said the community had failed to prove drug laws violated their constitutional rights, but acknowledged the need for a broader national debate on cannabis. There has been a continued push to legalize cannabis in Kenya, with advocates arguing that its regulated cultivation and trade could create jobs, boost tax revenue, and support industrial and medicinal use. Rastafarians argue that smoking cannabis is part of their religious doctrine, which must be respected and upheld.
Rastafari is our culture, and smoking weed or marijuana is a part of our culture. So we have to defend it in the law of court of law. Now we are waiting for the judgment to be announced on the 15th July, after 6 years of waiting.
Sometimes they find Rasta with that small, or they find him with the seeds or anything. They arrest him and go and persecute him and throw him in a dungeon, in a prison, where there is murderers, thieves, rapists, people who have done all manners of evil. And Rastaman He's a very peaceful man.
I'm Nkechi Chukwudi, reporting for Dott Television.
Thank you very much, Nkechi. And now let's go to sports news with Anthony Uche.
Sealed their place in the 23rd final of the FIFA World Cup following a convincing 2-0 victory over France on Tuesday in Dallas. Luis de la Fuente's side kept a fiercely attacking French team quiet, controlled a game that had a handful of chances, and deservedly booked their place in Sunday's showpiece, thanks to goals from Mikel Oyarzabal and Pedro Porro in either half. Oyarzabal opened the scoring from the penalty spot midway through the first half after a careless piece of defending from French left-back Lucas Digne resulted in him bringing down Lamine Yamal. 14 minutes into the second half, Pedro Porro played a lovely 1-2 with Dani Olmo before slotting in the second at the near post to effectively end France's hopes of a third consecutive World Cup final appearance. The two-time winners will now play the third-place match on Saturday in what will be Coach Didier Deschamps' last game in charge after 14 years at the helm of Le Bleu. The second finalist will be decided today when England and Argentina square off in Atlanta in what will be the sixth meeting between the two nations, the first since 1998. And ahead of the match, England defender McGahey has said that all the pressure will be on the defending champions Argentina, who will no doubt look to successfully defend their crown. Now to some transfer news. Manchester United have completed the signing of Yuri Tillemans from Aston Villa on a 5-year deal. United triggered his release clause of around £35 million for the 29-year-old midfielder, who spent the last 3 seasons at Villa from Leicester City, having initially moved to the Premier League in 2019 from Monaco. The Belgian international will wear the number 18 shirt vacated by Casemiro, who left Old Trafford when his contract expired at the end of last season. United also completed the free transfer of Leeds United goalkeeper Karl Darlow as backup to number 1 Seny Lemans. Still talking Manchester United, the former player Mason Greenwood has joined Fenerbahce from Marseille on a 4-year contract for a fee the Turkish club states is around €39 million. From one Turkish club, we go to another as Besiktas also confirmed the signing of Arsenal winger Leandro Trossard for an initial fee of €18 million plus €2 million in add-ons. The Belgian put pen to paper on a 3-year contract with the option of a 4th year. From the sports desk, Anthony Uche for Dott TV News.
That's all we have for you on Dott TV News at 4. Thank you for your time. I am Priscilla Ifani. And remember to follow Dott Television on all our social media platforms at official.tv. Thank you for joining us.